Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention for a minute, please? This is one of the most difficult minutes of my year, when you are so happily chatting, and there's this wonderful buzz, and I have to interrupt you and break the atmosphere, because there's work to do. First of all, welcome our guests for tonight. I hope you've had a wonderful day. I hope you have had a wonderful evening, dinner. We are about 2,000 tonight. This is a record for us. It's also almost a record for the amount of food that has been served in this establishment. It's a huge effort of the kitchen, and I should like to start with asking you to give them a big hand, because it's fantastic. Yeah, wonderful. Then it's time for our traditional evening activity, the award of the FOM Prizes. And as always, we have a very distinguished guest to hand over those prizes. And this year it is no one less than the President of the Royal Academy, Hans Clevers. Hans, I should like to ask you to the podium. You don't need an introduction, so I won't introduce you. Okay.
Well, thanks very much, Nick, for this brief introduction. I must say it's very special for me to be here in FOM. I've heard from Hans Chang and from Wim van Saarloos endless stories about how special FOM is and how special the FOM meetings in Veldhoven are. So I'm a humble biomedical scientist, and I'm clearly very intimidated to be here with you. I'll be awarding the prizes, but I was asked to say a little bit about the ongoing affairs in the national landscape. Maybe one word about Veldhoven. I was actually born and raised very close to here in Eindhoven and in Son. We always thought that Veldhoven was the end of the world, so we would never go there. But I guess ASML and the contributions of FOM have really made Veldhoven into what it is nowadays. I can say a little bit more if you want about Veldhoven, but maybe I shouldn't. So I've been a president of the Royal Academy for almost 3 years now, and I've actually tried to combine this with being a scientist. And I've moved back and forth between my lab, early mornings, weekends, and then the world in The Hague, the world of the politicians and the administrators. And in the second world, I've often felt like Alice in Wonderland. It is a very different world from the world that we as scientists live in. And as I actually had expected and maybe feared, I do meet, and I'm not trying to accuse anybody here, but I do meet very few real scientists in the world where things are decided about us. And I guess Gerard Meijer here is a good exception of a scientist taking on a responsibility as an administrator. I think it's a general philosophy that in Holland that we try to have generalist administrators governing professional organizations. So this can be healthcare, that I know quite well, this can be our educational system, this can be our science system, but the scientists, the professionals, the nurses, the doctors, the teachers tend not to be in charge of the landscape that they work in. Now, I think this has been very evident in the National Science Vision that was recently produced, the Wetenschapsvisie. I'll use a few Dutch words. It's not always easy to translate these to English. It has been in the making for many months. It appeared on the 26th of November, and it contains a number of elements that are very important for our daily functioning. I think there were some elements that we as scientists really liked. The creation of a matching fund for European funds in the order of 50 million. There were strong statements about open access publications. Again, Gerard Meijer has been very active in making this possible. In the Netherlands, I guess, scientists really like open access, but they are a little bit fearful that if we are the only ones that impose it upon our scientists, we might get in trouble internationally. But I'm sure that Gerard will take care of this very well. There is a standing committee announced that will be run by NWO to evaluate applications for large infrastructures. This must please you physicists very much, because you're unusually well organized to apply for these funds, much better than the biologists, I must admit. But there were two aspects in the science vision that have created a great turmoil. One of them was the National Science Agenda, and I'll say a little bit about that. And the other one was the fate of NWO. And there the Dutch word kantelen was being used. Now, kantelen is not easily translatable. I looked it up. It means, first of all, it means to drink. That's what I remember from my younger days. In English, there's the word flip, twist, tilt, turn around, spill. This is all kantelen, but the best word I liked is capsize. So I think we should... So when we refer to the kantelen of NWO, we mean capsizing NWO. That's something we have to be very careful about. The Royal Academy actually opened an online podium to allow scientists to comment on what we thought about the various parts of this science vision. And in essence, probably as many people are, we didn't comment on the good things, but there were lots of comments and lots of worries about the bad things. And this all had to do with the fear that this was going to be a top-down system. There was be a top-down programming of what we are going to do, and a top-down organization of NWO. And Van Damme in Tilburg, I just have a few citations from that site. Van Damme from Tilburg says, it's fine for the government to stimulate thinking and creativity, but steering in a certain direction is an altogether different matter. That was not a very positive remark. Piet Borst, who never is afraid of any strong statements, says, I don't know of any good scientist who feels there should be more control. Science needs modest administrators, preferably those that are active themselves in science and know how discoveries are made. Beatrice de Graaf, our national terrorist expert, says, the jargon around innovation, top sector and valorization appears to reflect a relapse to the simplistic desire of the alchemist turning stone into gold. And then there was one unnamed scientist who remarked that as a protest to signal that the end of free science is near in Holland, Robert Dijkgraaf should no longer appear in De Wereld Draait Door. So despite this, the Academy has decided, and actually together with Karl Dietrich of the United Universities, NWO and some other organizations, to actually help write the science agenda. And we hope that we will actually, by actively participating in this process, we will have an important influence on programming our own science, and particularly, I guess, the Academy, but also the university will fight for space for free research. So the agenda should not be plastered, should not be programmed entirely with defined subjects, but there should be significant space, and we're already arguing over this, there should be significant space for free research. And then maybe this agenda, there are many agendas at top sector, Horizon 2020, the university profiling, but the combined agenda might actually be one that is the mother of all our research agendas, and it might actually make our lives easier because it's the only one that we really have to look at, rather than all these different ones. Well, then there is the other issue, the capsizing of NWO. And there we have to be realistic, because actually there have been two evaluations of NWO that in the past 6 years or so that have both said that there are problems in NWO. NWO needs a shake-up. There are Chinese walls between the different gebieden, the different disciplines. FOM is obviously one of them. And it's also felt that the governments can be more effective and that those walls have to disappear. NWO has to be a more dynamic organization. What, however, was not appreciated in the original evaluation, individual plans for NWO, is the role that NWO plays in the national science landscape. And to clarify this, I'll try to take you back to the year 1918. And this is when Richard Haldane advised the British government to let basic scientists themselves decide how to spend the science budget. So not top-down, not bureaucrats, but the scientists themselves decide who gets the money. This insight now bears his name. It's called the Haldane Principle. It was the fundament of ZBO, the predecessor of NBO, and it is the Haldane Principle that we are probably trying to defend in these past months when we talk about NBO. When Alexander Renoy-Kahn accepted the Academy penning last year, he spoke some very wise words about basic science, and he said, the Haldane Principle has proven itself over and over. It places politicians away from decisions as to how the budget is spent, but it does not remove their responsibility for the overall size of the science budget. So politicians should not program, they just should give us money, and we will program. That's the message of Alexander Renoy-Kahn. Then, when I try to explain what MBO is in the landscape, the following seems to work quite well. So 80% of our research budget is given to universities. The universities spend this very wisely in a, I would say, top-down manner. It creates a very stable, high-level plateau where we can do science. However, in the absence of MBO, we don't do very special things at our universities. It is MBO that is unruly. MBO will actually give money to young talents, to unusual science, to things that are not programmable, might not fit in the strategy of the universities. And it's the tension between this extremely well-structured, stable university system and then the 20% of money that the scientists in the bottom-up way give to this system that together creates a unique system that I think is second to none in the world. Dutch science, despite the fact that we spend very little money on it, is consistently in the top 3 or 5 countries in the world. Very surprisingly, so the scientists en masse started protesting. That is quite unusual. I think there were lots of the universities, the individual scientists, the academy, MBO, all protested against this change, the capsizing MBO. The employers' organization, VNO-NCW, very surprisingly also supported this. We thought they would only support top sectoren, they like programming, but actually they did like FOM and STW even more than they like top sectoren. So I think it's a main reason, and it's a strength, I think it says a lot about the strength of FOM, that actually the employers sided with us in our fight for the identity of NWO. I think at the moment the situation is such that we're probably no longer in danger of losing our MBO. The fear was that we would have a 15th university that the other 14 universities could make deal with. No, now it's our MBO, and we will continue to create that tension between the stable plateau of the universities and the unruly bottom-up science of the scientists. One last thing, in the process of writing this vision, we were often consulted, the academy, universities. We have consistently stated that we would really like a paragraph in that vision that says, we are not spending so much money in Holland, we don't have the money at the moment, but the moment that the economy does better, we are going to invest in science. And very disappointingly, the ministry has refused, and if you read the text, there's not a single sentence that states that possibly in the future Holland will spend more money on science. It's very disappointing. It's also not very smart, I think, because we have very little natural resources. We have people that we need to educate, and we have to innovate, and we have to do research, and that can only be done when you invest. So it is really, and I don't want to end on a very negative note, but I think it's very, very disappointing that our politicians do not want to make the statement that science is important and that science deserves more investments at a time that it's possible. Now, we don't want to end on a very negative note. Not all of us are in financial problems. There's actually 4 people here that will do much better after tonight than before tonight. These are the 4 FOM prize winners. So I'll take you through the pièce de résistance of this evening. 3 prizes. The first one is the FOM Physics Thesis Award. It is a prize of 10,000 euros awarded each year to the author of the best physics thesis. Subject of this year's thesis is fluid dynamics, and in layman's terms that I can understand, it deals with how drops of liquid evaporate. ASML is very interested in this apparently, they support this research, and it actually reached the media. Why do coffee stains appear the way they do? The jury lauds the attractive and transparent style of writing, and may I invite Hanneke Gelderblom from the University of Twente on stage to receive the FOM Physics Thesis Award. Hanneke Gelderblom. Van harte. Je krijgt. En deze en deze. Ja, neem je. Je gaat wat zeggen.
I feel extremely happy and honored to receive this prize, and I would like to thank very much the jury and FOM for selecting me. I also feel very lucky, not only because of this prize, but because I've been able to perform my PhD research in a very nice and inspiring environment, which is the Physics of Fluids group at the University of Twente. So I would like to thank all the people that interacted with me and contributed to my thesis. And most importantly, also my PhD advisors, Detlef Loze and Jacco Snoeyer, for all their support, confidence, and for giving me the opportunity to work in their group. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Everybody see it? So we move on to the next prize, the FOM Valorization Chapter Prize. With this prize, FOM encourages PhD students to devote a separate chapter in their thesis to the valorization of their doctoral research. It is a prize of 5,000 euros that can be spent on anything, aimed to encourage PhD students to explore possibilities to commercialize their research. The laureate of this year describes the nature of seismic movements, how these affect gravitational waves, and how such noise can be filtered out. The laureate did not stop at the science. He established a startup company that, for instance, works now with Shell. A great example of how basic science and commercial application can go hand in hand. Can I invite Mark Beker from NICA-VU on stage for the voorlezing? Van harte. And a photo moment.
So, as many of you would know, writing a PhD thesis can sometimes be rather a tedious task. And then having to write another chapter at the end of it might seem like a rather unwelcome addition. But I believe that it is important for you and for me to show the rest of the world that fundamental research is more than just amazing physics, that it also has an added economic value for the rest of society. And I think it's great that FOM supports this through, amongst other things, this prize, which I'm very pleased to accept. I'd like to thank FOM, thank NICAF, and thank everybody at the Gravitational Wave Physics Group for making my research and this prize possible. Thank you.
So then the third and final award, the FOM Valorization Prize 2014. The prize is 250,000 euros. It is to encourage the utilization of knowledge from physical research. This year it goes to two of the most successful and well-known nanotechnologies in our country, and the jury report evokes an image of two Siamese twins, and we might verify it when they come on stage. Their research bridges nanotechnology, physics, chemistry, and material sciences. The two awardees invented an analytical method which allows the development of superconductors and other superior materials. It had already led to the startup of two new companies. The enthusiasm of the laureates does not stop in the lab or at the science park, as also just heard. They appear at festivals like the Black Cross Festival, which I think is somewhere in Twente, yeah, where people go and go heuken, I understand. And they went to the Lowlands University. May I ask Guus Reinders and Dave Blank to the stage. Van harte. Van harte, jullie moeten deze... Een heleboel attributen. Deze niet verwisselen. Jullie gaan...
So, wow, what a lot of people. And wow, it feels great to win this year's Valorization Prize. And I would like to start to thanking FOM for awarding us this prize. Dave and I are really honored with this prize. And I never considered us as a Siamese twin, but okay, maybe it is like that. I also want to thank, of course, the University of Twente and Mesa Institute for Nanotechnology, because I think they gave us the possibility to do fundamental, basic materials research, but always in an entrepreneurial setting. So we were happy to get spin-off companies started, to collaborate with a lot of industries, and still work on fundamental questions. And I have to say, this is really fun. So I always like being there at the university and do this work. And I would really encourage you all to do this in this setting. But having said this, I also want to thank, of course, the members of our group within Mesa Plus, because, of course, we are not doing all the work, only a very limited amount of work, but most of the work is being done by our PhD students, our master students, our bachelor students, and also by our former students starting up these spin-off companies like Twente Solid State Technology and Soulmates. They are the real prize winners, and I'm happy to share it with them. So thank you all.
So it's my turn. First, I want to thank Guus, the Soulmates. We did it already for 25 years, trying to giving science into products, into companies. And I think, well, today, I think it's a very nice moment to share with each other. Also, the Entrepreneurial University, the University of Twente, and the Mesa Plus Institute. And I'm very happy that David is here, because he was the initiator of the Mesa Plus. And we are having more than 50 spin-off companies already from the Institute, thanks to Albert, but also Mirjam and Janneke. So I think I'm in a very good community here. But as Guus already said, the real people are the young people who will start these spin-off companies, who got the guts to do so, and hopefully also the glory afterwards. And of course, FOM. This morning there were some words with Nick about how FOM is going in the next future. And I think, well, if we are here together, FOM is in our heart. And if people know me, then at the end of speeches, I like to cheer them up with 2 thumbs. So I do this experiment also in Facebook. So I ask you to do 2 thumbs up and I make a movie out of it. And I know that behind the curtains on both halls, we cannot see you, but we can hear you. We can hear you. Okay, so it's now, I will take a short movie, cheering for FOM, because it's in our heart, with 2 thumbs up, and you may stand up, and you may allow it to make a lot of noise. So let's start the movie now. Yes, just cheer up. Normally I would say we do that once again because it can be louder. But time is not allowed. Thank you. It will be on Facebook soon. Thank you, FOM.
Okay, with this we've reached the end of the frivolous prize ceremony. I must say, as a non-physicist, I am surprised at what you physicists are capable of, and I'm sure my colleagues will look at Facebook and they might do this. I'm not really sure. We have another photo moment, and I guess after this, Nick will introduce the serious speaker of the evening. Mag ik ook vasthouden?